It's actually not new versus. It's actually sustaining good clients in a way that they will never want to walk away from you, to support you to go and get your new clients, especially in engineering, because the companies for which most engineers work quite cyclical in their project spends.
Welcome to Long-Term Thinking for Business Success, a show for and by business owners. Each episode will explore how to beat the odds and create a sustainable business and the life we've dreamt of. Today's guest is Pete Sackett, founder and director of CDE Design Solutions. Pete founded CDE Design Solutions in 2001. He started the business with 4 full-time staff and is based in Bathurst, New South Wales. Prior to starting CDE Design Solutions, Pete spent several years as a project and development engineer for Uncle Ben's Australia, which is now called Mars Pet Care, and an engineering manager for a high-tech wool processing plant at Parkes, New South Wales, before becoming an engineering consultant. He started CDE Design Solutions to support local food manufacturers with drafting and factory-related mechanical engineering, design, troubleshooting, and project management services. Now, with over 20 years in business, CDE has implemented thousands of projects and expanded beyond food manufacturing. Today, CDE Solutions offers a broad range of engineering and drafting services to private, family-owned, and public companies, as well as regional and metropolitan local governments across eastern states of Australia. Hi, Pete. Welcome to the Long-Term Thinking for Business Success podcast, and thanks for joining us.
Hi, Rick, and thanks for asking me. I didn't realize that there was so much in my life, but you've summed it up quite well.
I look forward to getting further into it. In fact, we'll start there. Before we dive into the detail of building CDE Design Solutions and your experience over the last 20 years, can you take us back to when you were working as an employed engineer and what motivated you to start your own firm? Were you an accidental business owner, or did you always have an entrepreneurial drive?
There were several things that occurred. One was that I had been for 25 years on the other side of the fence, being a user of engineering services, design drafting in the mechanical area. But working for 24/7 factories for 25 years, I decided I wanted to reclaim my life a little bit. So then we moved back to Bathurst from Parkes. I took up a role as a manager for a small local engineering consultant, which was struggling to the point where the directors decided they were going to shut down the Bathurst operation. Now, myself and the chief draftsman here looked at the numbers and said, this is a little bit crazy. We knew that if we didn't take the company over, we wouldn't have a job. So in answer to your question, I got into being a business owner after I wanted to reclaim my life from 24/7 factories. And 2, I wanted a job. It's quite simple.
Yeah, very simple. Although it's interesting, so many engineers that I speak to that started because they were either a consultant and suddenly found themselves with a team, or as is your story, they're accidental business owners. It's very similar in my world in marketing businesses as well. We find ourselves running a team in a business and looking back going, wow, how did we end up here? Just to then go back again and to explore a little bit of CDE, what's the change you want to make? Or to put that another way, what's the vision you're trying to deliver for CDE, and who are your ideal customers?
The vision is one very much based around the skills of our people. We have changed our focus a few times over the years based on the skills of the people. My role is to support all the people that work for this company and make sure that people have the work to do and the proper resources to do the work, which is probably an upside down version of what a lot of people think the CEO's role is. Unless I can tap on the best skills of the best people that I have and that they are happy in doing their work, I'm just fighting all the time. My vision is to have a team that is using their skills in the things that they love doing to their best advantage, and in so doing, as a company, being able to benefit from the group of people. That's a very symbiotic relationship, actually.
It's a wonderful proposition to have a great team and build a business around a team's skills and bring value to each other. Taking that just a little bit further in terms of you obviously spent many years working in food manufacturing and that was the start of the business. Today, who are your ideal clients and who do you ideally work with?
We have two branches to the business, the engineering support, but we also have a drafting business as well. We do our own drafting and we do drafting support for those same people. And we do steel drafting and fabrication drafting works. And that all merges together because one is so reliant on the other. And the questions the draftsmen make, we can instantly answer from an engineering perspective. My ideal customer, we have several. And of course, number one is the customer that pays the bill. So it's up to us to make sure that they pay the bill with a smile by giving them good value and that they have had a good experience. We work a lot for food manufacturers, international companies. We work for Tier 2, which are the larger Australian companies, and they blend into the Tier 3, which are the smaller family-owned Australian companies. The ideal companies are the people that are willing to listen, that are strong in their own field. They know what they want, they know what they're good at, and that realise that they might be the best at making their XYZ widgets. They are not factory designers, and they can hand that responsibility to us. We don't want to make their widgets for them. We want to make great factories for them to make their widgets. So open-minded family companies are our ideal customers, as long as the team with whom we're working are nice people. We're happy to sack customers that are not nice.
I think that's a great position to take. It adds so much value to both your business and the relationship with your clients if there's a common set of values and an appreciation of the expertise that you bring to the table. So it's really great that you're so clear on both the types of clients, but also the personalities of the people you want to work with.
We generally find, Rick, the Australian companies that are family owned mostly have great Australian family values, and that flows down to their people in the same way foster it in our business. So there usually is a good harmony between our people working for them and their people. And it's very common. Great companies, great people in Australia.
Just to go a little bit deeper on that, in terms of building your own culture and that relationship between clients, are there specific things that you do with your team to foster that attitude and those relationships?
We are very careful about who we employ at the start because it's getting more commonly known these days that you can teach skills, but you can't teach attitude. So we are looking for people that generally work in the right area and have the skills, but available and open to be trained up, but more so have the right attitude. We start with our people being people that want to join in to those conversations. Conversation is a great word. Chat is a bit cliche, but that's what we do. We try open communications all the time with our clients so that they feel that they are included in the engineering factory development process and they're not being left out. And our people feel that they are being worthwhile in what they contribute.
Can I just go back a bit to the start of the business? You mentioned that you were employed in a firm that you obviously took over, and I assume that's why you had 4 staff and project to kick the business off. But that must have been pretty stressful for you, but also a fairly new experience. Can you talk through the process of whether you were buying out the other owners or managing them out of the business? What was the journey you went through taking on the business yourself?
We were told one day, directors of the previous company were going to close our office. Myself and the chief draftsman, I was the general manager and the principal engineer. Myself and the chief draftsman had a little conversation and did some numbers and looked at what we had coming up and said, this is a bit crazy. One, the work is there for us to do and it's good work and profitable work. And two, who'll do it if we don't do it? There's no one else around in this sort of niche. I quietly approached one of the directors and suggested that could he talk to the others about the opportunity to hand it on to us if they wanted to get out of it and not shut it down. And a day or so later, we had an approach from them to say, look, we're going to shut this down, but would you guys like to take it over? We said, yeah, we'll buy all the hardware, we'll buy all the software, and we'll just continue on. So that is the process by which we came to take over and keep going. Out of that came a couple of other interesting things. The one being the importance of an accountant, because we straight away had to go to an accountant. We'd never had to do this before. We're going to start a business and we need to set up a company and an ABN and all this tax stuff and that, and we haven't got a clue. It's just as we do with clients. We rang up 3 accountants, said, we're going to interview you as to whether or not you should be our accountant. We had a chat with these 3, and then after having them tell us why they should be their accountant, we selected one. And actually, we're still with him 23 years later. So it was that same communication process, being informed and knowing what you want in your values. And it's not that the other accountants weren't aligned with values, but this young guy was mostly in line.
The trust and value that we can put into the accountants and advisors we build around us. I'm sure since those days, your role as managing director has changed. Often in founder-led businesses, although the founder remains heavily involved in various aspects of the business and has lots of roles and responsibilities and hats they wear. Can you share today in the business what your top priorities are and what you do to remain focused on them?
My top priority still, from day one to now, remains making sure that my people have what they need to do their job properly.
And how do you explore that and make sure that they're delivering against that?
Mostly, I have a morning meeting with all the staff. Only takes about 10 to 15 minutes. They have the opportunity at any point in time to say, do you have 5 minutes? I need this. Or can you give me a call back? Or can we hang on after this meeting? I need to tell you that. And out of that comes the discussion about how they're doing on a daily basis, whether they are forecasting something might go wrong or whether they're doing it quick and need to get into communication with the clients quicker if they're not doing it themselves. But it's back to that communication. Also, every day when I walk around to their desk and I stop and I say hello and I have a look at what's happening through the day and I have a talk to them. So by the time I get to the morning meeting, I pretty well know all the answers. The morning meeting also allows them to inform the other people in the team what they're up to. It's mostly this verbal communication and being close to all our people, which we can do with a business this size. Hand in hand with that, as principal engineer, I have to make a lot of engineering and design decisions as well, which draws on my skills and my experience.
How do you balance the engineering decisions and the client project decisions that you need to make versus time managing your team? No matter how small a team is, it is always heavy investment in time and emotional energy to make sure your teamers are engaged. So how do you balance 2 priorities?
It is through that same conversation and the lens through which I look is, are my team happy or okay with what they're doing, and do they have what they need to do? That is the yardstick by which I decide I have to do some work for them, or now I have some available time to do some other stuff. If they're unhappy and they're sitting twiddling their thumbs, my business isn't making. It's really quite simple.
But just to go a little bit deeper on that, trust and accountability are critical for any effective team. And especially in today's world where, as you've mentioned, you've got some staff members who don't work specifically or physically in the office. And I imagine you've got engineers on client sites and on projects, either for a period or extended period. Besides these conversations and making sure that you employ people with the right values to begin with, are there other things that you do within your team to make sure that you're building trust and accountability?
All the site guys have a fortnightly morning session in the office where they get to share and offer their learnings to everybody else. We also have a 3-monthly barbecue where we get everybody else together for quite some time and just sit around in the sunshine, hopefully, and talk about what's happening in their lives and so on. And I think fostering the CDE family attitude is very important. But back to your question, what else might I do? Because of the communications with our clients, we monitor time, how long it takes to do jobs. We forecast at the start of jobs how long we expect. We keep a tab on are they going to plan? And if they're not going to plan, we talk with the people working on the job to find out why. Is there anything more we can do? We talk with the client about how they're experiencing what we're doing for them. Like at the end of most Teams meetings with a client, for instance, we would just say little things like, are you happy with where we're up to? Were you expecting something different? So we're constantly getting this informal feedback from the client, again, through conversation. Having been in this business for a long, long time now, I think we're getting pretty good at picking up the cues if something's not going right with either our people or with the client.
I'm sure you are. Could you tell us a story of when you had feedback from the client, either informally or formally, that the project wasn't going the way they expected and it wasn't working to what they thought it should, and how you dealt with that?
This is a bit of a whole negative one, this one. We had a particular unique business in Sydney in the industrial area, and he called us in and gave us a brief. We thought we were following through that brief. We'd done work, we'd spoken to him, and quite regularly when we went down and spoke to him, he had changed his mind. And often in changing his mind, he hadn't passed that on to us when the change was made, but we continued on to do work, not knowing that the rules had changed. And as I speak about this right now, I can picture another couple as well, one particular client in Queensland, where every time we went there, the scope of the job had changed. And in the end, they'd said, you didn't give us what you wanted. This fortnight when we came up, we did, but then you rewrote the rules and you rewrote the rules and so on and so on. They are really very frustrating if the client thinks they are the expert really in what you are the expert and they are not sticking to the game plan. And in both those cases, we walked away from those clients. It was just getting too hard.
Did the business suffer a commercial loss in those projects, or you managed to at least recoup the time and materials?
We didn't make the profit we wanted to make. They might have become break even. I don't think either of them went into the negative where it cost us more. But more than anything, it's disappointing when you do your best for someone and they really don't know what they want. We do have another company in Sydney with whom we occasionally interact. He's a nice guy and I'd say, what you're asking seems quite difficult or not right, doesn't seem sensible. Why don't you go and do this? And he says, oh, thanks very much. And we stopped working together then, and he's gone away and taken the advice, and things are successful. So next time he rings me up, he says, oh, I took your advice. And yeah, but I wasn't able to invoice you for anything. So, but I'm glad your business is moving forward. I've had a couple of sessions with people like that, which is actually quite fulfilling, even though not from a financial point of view, but it's quite fulfilling that they have actually taken your advice. Whereas the other people want to keep changing the rules on you. That's just plain hard work.
That goes all the way back to our early discussion on an alignment of values. So you obviously have a value of we bring expertise to the table. If the client respects the value that you bring to it, then you can have a rewarding conversation and bring value to them. And if they don't, the project can go off the rails.
Yes, through no fault of your own, because you've just followed their directions the whole time.
Yes, the joy of following client directions rather than trying to lead projects. But we shan't go deeply into that because I'm sure that affects both of our businesses in the same way. Just to go a different direction, can you think back to a time when the business was at a fork in the road, and depending on which path you chose, the business could have gone a completely different direction, possibly quite profoundly different direction?
It was about 12 years ago, and we were working for a customer who was doing a lot of steel fabrication. And this wasn't in our factory design and layout. This was more in our drafting side of business. He had big projects on these, like school buildings and complete hospitals and things like that. Big hospitals. We were doing the steel detailing and drafting for him. He was getting us to start the next job and putting in the bill for the previous job, the major contractor, and our account with him was growing and growing. We were at the point where our account with this guy, we'd invoiced over well over $200,000, and we hadn't seen any money. And we had actually gone to one of the principal contractors and told them about this, and they'd overwritten a check direct to us from the contractor. That brought us unstuck to the point where we had a business overdraft to keep the business going at the time. We had two offices. We had office Batterston and office in Orange. The Orange office was doing the structural work and we were doing the factory work. At that point in time, because of that major financial crisis, we decided to separate the business into two very amicably. Myself and my business partner at the time amicably split the business into one side that just did major detailed drafting, and us who focused on factory design work and all the minor drafting associated with that. We could have held the business together at that point in time. We could have chosen to go for a bigger overdraft at that point in time and argue our way through it with the bank, but we decided to cleanly divide the business enough and let myself, who was more the factory person, just have this responsibility, and my partner, who was the chief draftsman, have the drafting responsibility. Yeah, that was a big financial thing that shook us very much so, to the point where we decided to separate.
What did you take away from that? What were some of the lessons or learnings you took from that experience?
Personally, never have a bank overdraft. It has limited our growth, but it means that we are totally in control of our own destiny. As long as we have cash in the bank and can fund ourselves, we answer to nobody. That was a massive takeaway from that. And a second takeaway was that really, in the end, you are best to specialize in what you know best. I was not a detailed draftsman for major stuff. And I really couldn't contribute to that conversation, but the conversation about factories was the one I could be in at any point in time in any factory and know what I was talking about.
Just to jump back to your insight around the growth of the business and how you've driven growth, from our perspective, growth can either come from bringing in new clients to the business or building better and deeper relationships with current clients. When you think about growing CDE, where do you focus on the equation of new versus deep relationships with current clients, and why is that your position?
It's actually not new versus. It's actually sustaining good clients in a way that they will never want to walk away from you, to support you to go and get your new clients, especially in engineering, because the companies for which most engineers work quite cyclical in their project spends. So whilst we might be working for tier one company A this year, who have a big project development budget, tier one company B may not be going to spend any money this year, but next year they may have the budget and the tier one is finished. So we have to be able to ride these cycles, and it's really hard to predict because so many of these companies, the spend is controlled overseas by people who are straight accounting type people, and they say, look, operations in France this year need the money. Despite us saying to you, you can have it, we're not going to give it to you. And that's totally out of control of absolutely everybody in Australia. Us consultants at the bottom end of that, we don't have a chance at all, which is why we've moved more into one, having them as essentially base load, and we have 3 or 4 of them. So at any point in time, 1 or 2 of them have some big projects happening, and we switch between also then the family orientated companies in Australia, where we can talk directly to the owners and the money people. We can have a better idea then of what their plans are. And we are talking to the money people, the decision makers. So we have this mix of these big people with big jobs going on all the time, and these smaller people that are really passionate and very good at what they do, knowing that they can drive their own growth. And somehow or other, we have to blend all that together to give us a sort of a balance and keep our order books full without overdoing it. And that's the problem for all small businesses, either too much work and not enough people, or too little work and too many people.
I love that
Yeah.
diversified approach to, well, both business development, but also the client load. So some rising stars and some cash cows. We had the same experience. We
Mm.
used to work with, in fact, some of the same sorts of businesses. Master Foods and Nestle's were some of our primary clients, but as a small marketing business, the people we were dealing with were just interested in getting it done faster and cheaper and not about the value. And then when we started to shift the business to work with the business owners, smaller businesses, but the owner of the business, their appreciation of the value and the respect for the expertise we bring to the table just changed the whole conversation. And I expect that's also what has happened in your business. Just to go completely different direction, systems and processes is often said to be one of the main reasons why a business is successful over an extended period of time. Can you tell us about a system or process that you have implemented, more specifically from an internal system or process rather than a process for a client, that has had a significant impact on your success and what that impact was?
Engineering is something where there's record keeping and all the rest and so on and so on. Whenever we do anything, there's pieces of paper as such we have to fill out to do it and achieve what we want to do. We had a whole lot of standalone systems. We had a system for safety. We had a system for job tracking. We had a separate system for timekeeping. Some time ago now, probably about 10 years ago, we realized that we needed to start to draw all these into a much more efficient way. And my two eyes is to look at everything we've done and compile it all into a wiki style system. He was able to link to all our systems through this wiki style system, and it allows us to actually refine them in a way that's all under control and to keep records on the changes, pursue an ISO 9000 style record keeping for everything through the business. Whilst we're not ISO 9001 rated, we have pursued that as a goal in the way that we do all our record keeping and our business systems. For instance, I want to get, say, a letterhead to type a letter. I go to our wiki and I just type in a letterhead and up it pops. A safety document, a site safety, go on site sort of document that our guys have to fill out before they start a job. I put in site safety document and up it pops. Everything just pops up off the screen. And that was all an in-house, very powerful, extremely powerful. It's brought a uniformity. People know that we are systems based.
The next step will start to ingest that into some sort of artificial intelligence system that can help you find similar projects and similar answers to problems that you're facing today that you've had over the years.
Yes, we don't quite know yet. We're a bit cautious about that. We don't quite know yet in this design landscape in which we're involved, just how AI is going to affect us. For things which have a history, AI can go out and search and find it and all the rest of it. And probably there's some of that available to us, but we work in a commercial environment which is very IP sensitive, and a lot of IP isn't up on the internet because the big companies hold it so close. We have to be very careful about that ourselves. So how AI is going to help us, don't know yet. I know there will be some amazing thing happen, but I'm just not
We
sure.
are already at the very early stages of commercial use, and so much more change to happen with this area in the next 20 years. Again, just to do a bit of a hard left turn, I often find that the hardest lessons for me are one that I've had to revisit often a number of times before I really learn the lesson and can adopt to it. Can you think back to a lesson that you've had to learn and relearn and how that's impacted your business?
Yeah, sure. And this lesson comes back to what I was talking about earlier on. You need to specialize and have an expert or several experts. You cannot run a business if somebody or a group of people in your business aren't expert in our game. We tried earlier on to have a income focus on that rather than a delivery focus on that. And early in the we said we are a engineering design and drafting company. What sits beside us that if the engineering design and drafting slows down, that can support us? So rather than taking the approach we now take with different sized businesses, we took the approach of printing is an ancillary business. We need printing done, and therefore go and buy a local print shop that we own. So when we do printing, we can print what we need. This is in the days when you printed drawings and delivered rolls of drawings to people. So we bought a print shop and run quite well. It was existing. It was sitting in a major regional town. It was very useful for us. The problem was that all those little copy shops and print shops were disappearing really quickly. The people that owned that and sold it to us realised that was happening, but we weren't expert in it. And by the time the town had gone from 8 print shops to 3 print shops, and we were one of them, and then Officeworks came in. And then there was only Officeworks. It was a pretty costly thing. That was trying to support our income in something in which we weren't expert. We tried that again a few years later when all the energy stuff was happening, and we had a person working for us that says, I can go and do energy audits. And this is the days before people had solar panels and before they'd changed their light bulbs and all the rest of it. And energy audits were the big thing. We had a couple of people working for us that did energy audits, but it ended up costing us more in wages than it cost us because we weren't expert in energy audit. So that was another thing that fell over. We had a surveyor working for us, and the surveyor was a great surveyor. His own one-man business had suffered a bit because he was trying to do all the marketing, all the sales, all the surveying. And the days of one-man business, one-man consultancies is just about impossible because you just can't book the number of hours you need to because of all the other red tape. So we folded him in, and so we had sales systems in place and we had the commercial sides in place. He was no longer the owner. He came in as an employee, and I wasn't expert in surveying. We didn't lose money with our surveying business. It was still hard work because those of us at the very top of this business weren't expert in it. So that's about being expert in what you do.
I think it goes back all the way to the start again of the values discussion and valuing your expertise. And when you back yourself on your expertise, you kick goals. When you try to be tangential to that, it's not as successful.
In answer to your question, we've tried 3 different things which financially haven't worked out for us to support our business. And the latest one, in conjunction with IOG Group, is to look at the major suppliers and the different tiers and levels of people for whom we are experts and level our business out that way.
Thank you for that. Bill Gates famously said, we overestimate what we can get done in 1 year, but underestimate what we can get done in 10 years. Where do you see CDE Design Solutions going in the next 5 years? And what do you think are the key obstacles you need to overcome to get there?
Wow, Rick, what a question. I'm really pleased with the work that we've done with IOG, and I think that has cleared up a whole lot of marketing debris that we've had lying around. We're an engineering company. We're not expert in marketing. We now have a plan, and we're working towards that plan, and we can expand that plan. The difficulty with us, I think, is going to be bringing on board the expertise we need to remain expert in the field. So it's quite niche what we do. There are not many people around. When people say to me, what do you do? We say, we design factories. We don't design the outside. We design what happens inside the factory. The building on the outside is just a shell to keep the rain off. Finding people that want to be involved and with the expertise in that sort of niche area is really difficult. I think that's going to be a drawback.
Is that because you're regionally based, or even in metropolitan cities, you're seeing a lack of resources and skilled, or lack of desire for people to be in the domain expertise?
There's an awful lot of regionally based companies around the place. If you look at most of the big food companies, bigger, all in regional, Kraft regional, all the Mars companies are regional, all the dairy companies are regional. Now, I think it's more that Australia has wound down its manufacturing over the last 20 to 30, 40 years. We've relied on so much being brought in from overseas. We've almost, as a country, forgotten how to make things. We can build roads, we can build bridges, we can build great tunnels under cities. We've got lots of people that can do that. We've forgotten how to manufacture this value-adding stuff. There's lots of this high-level manufacture, advanced technologies and all the rest of it. But we grow so much food for the whole world, and yet we don't know how to value-add it. That value-adding of this huge economy we have in Australia is what's been let go. We need STEM happening in schools. We need people to be excited about actually making stuff and building stuff again. We need inspiration in that way so that we get our homegrown skills in making stuff again. And that's where we have trouble. People that want to make stuff.
again, it just brings us back to that full circle. As a country, we need to continue to be building our own expertise. Pete, that was my final question. Thank you for allowing us to dive into CDE Design Solutions. The plug for IOG. I appreciate you being a client of ours, and really thank you for sharing your experience and lessons and commitment to expertise.
Thanks, Rick. It's been fun. You've even given me a few insights.